Good evening and welcome to this evening's Love Not Fear performance with my lovely co-host Jack Cox. Ta-da!
Author of Love Not Fear.
And I am the wonderful Annie Day, and I've written two books, even not bits. I don't know what bits are, but books, Orgasmic Health and Your Guide to Feeling Fabulous Fast. So the lovely Jack and I decided that this evening we would talk about meetings with remarkable trees. So one of my very, very favourite trees, which thankfully isn't very far away from me in sunny Penkridge, is based at Archangel Michael and All Angels Church in sunny Penkridge. And what the church is a medieval building, a grade 1 listed building, and the tree that Jack and I visited on Saturday is extraordinary. It's a 1,000-year-old yew tree, and because he's been pollarded in the past, so that means all the branches have been taken out from the centre. It means that you can go right inside him and have a really big, lovely hug from him. And his name is Elwyn.
Absolutely superb.
Wasn't it? Just the most amazing energy, isn't it? It really, really is. So yeah, when I'm feeling like I've got something to really celebrate, I go and celebrate inside Elwyn and thank him for always protecting me and guiding me. And equally at those dark tea times of my soul, I've gone and visited him and just sat inside and just let him do his funky magic for me. So this tree is really spectacularly, it feels like to me, like having a really big hug off your mum and dad all at once. It's just that lovely, cuddly, protected, lovely feeling, basically.
Trees are the most wonderful beings,
aren't they? They're responsible for us being able to breathe beautiful oxygen as well, and for lots of other reasons, but the primary reason obviously is if there's no oxygen we won't be able to breathe. So they're so vitally important for our overall health, basically. So I also wanted to talk about, so I got a witness from the lovely Elwyn on Saturday. So any pieces of the tree are called witnesses, basically. And I asked his permission if I could have a little bit of him for me and for the lovely Jack as well. And he was very happy to do so. So yew trees are very protective. They carry the highest spiritual values of protection, discernment and memory, but they're also linked to unconditional love and your earth star. So they're very, very grounding as well. And
well, certainly was full of unconditional love, wasn't he?
Oh, absolutely. It was tangible, wasn't it? It really was tangible.
You could feel it.
Yeah, massively, massively, massively. And I spoke to Jack on Saturday about an occasion when I went and stopped somebody from chopping him down. And I also know that it's a reciprocal arrangement. He protects me as much as I would protect him as well. And that's one of the overarching features of all trees, really, that they love human beings that look after them, basically.
Yeah, they reciprocate, don't they? If they've had good experiences with people, then they're beautiful.
Yeah.
But if people have pissed them off, then they can be quite standoffish.
Yeah, indeed. And they know when somebody's, you know, doing work that is protecting them. And for the people who come and cut them down unnecessarily, it's barbaric, and it really hurts my heart when I see things like that. It really does.
Remember that walk we did a few months ago in Great Haywood?
Yeah.
And how beautiful the energies were there.
Yeah, massively, darling.
But I don't know whether you noticed, there was one yew tree there that was very, very standoffish, very prickly.
Why do you think that is, Jack? Do you know why it's like that?
I don't know why, but I imagine that he's been abused.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so, because they all trees tend to be very sacrificial, don't they? You know, they give us so much in so many ways for our health, but equally they have good memories as well, and they know the difference in people's energies. So they know the ones who are protective, but they also know the ones who are not good for them, basically.
So we've just been joined by Andrew. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
Lovely to see you. Yeah, there was something about that one yew tree in Grey Haywood. It just didn't want to know.
Yeah, and it will be because somebody's another human being has damaged him in some way.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
which is really sad, isn't it?
I mean, if you're going to have to work with a tree, I mean, as a forester, not as a
Yeah,
not in a magical way, but if you're going to work with a tree as a forester,
yeah, sure.
I always used to do this when I used to work in conservation. I always used to try to give the tree 2 or 3 days notice of what was about to happen.
Absolutely.
Make sure it understood and understood why it had to happen.
Yeah.
I didn't just dive in there with my chainsaw blaring.
Yeah, exactly.
But people do. I mean, so many foresters, they just don't have any concept at all about the trees as sentient beings.
No. And I'm very blessed that annually I run a workshop called Tree Spirit Healing. And I was really blessed this year that a man came on the course who is a tree surgeon, I think
Tree surgeon, yeah.
Proper title. And he said that a lot of what I was teaching him was how he works anyway, that he would say to the tree, I'm really sorry that we've got to cut this branch off, or we've got to lock this. It's because, and then explain to the tree, because he felt very uncomfortable with, you know, chopping the tree down or chopping limbs off it without communicating with that tree. And I'm sure that if we talk from our hearts, and the trees get it, they really do, don't they?
I mean, trees live for hundreds, or in some cases even 1,000 years or more.
Yeah.
To them, a human lifetime is a
blink of an eye, isn't it?
Blink of an eye. I nearly said it in Dutch. Ogenblikje. I don't know why. Anyway, yeah.
You can say it in Dutch if you wish.
Long time since I was in Holland, many years, but I still remember a few phrases. Yeah, and even if you give them 2 or 3 days notice, it's still a bit of a shock.
Yeah, of course, because they are sentient beings.
Totally different time scale from us. But just to wade in there with your chainsaw and not even tell it what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's a lack of respect for another living.
Absolutely.
Lack of respect for another living being.
Yeah, indeed. And I've told you this, and I've probably said it on our YouTube radio show as well, that many years ago, when Jeffrey was still the vicar at St. Michael's and All Angels, this guy had clearly had, you know, a chainsaw for Christmas and was chopping down the branches because they were daring to rub against I don't know what you'd call it, a headstone. That was from 1803. And I said, you can't do this. You can't do this to him. He's a sentient being. And he said, I can do whatever I want. So I ran into the church, told Jeffrey that somebody was cutting Eloise down, and he came out and he said, she's saying that I can't do this. And he said, she's right, you're wrong. You're not welcome here ever again. Just go. So I was really grateful that the vicar and I were on the same page with this, and that he loved the yew tree as much as I do.
Yeah. They're such beautiful beings.
Oh, absolutely. For so many reasons. They give us shade, they give us furniture. We make all our books out of them. You know, as well as them giving us oxygen. The Japanese call it forest bathing, when you walk into a forest and that greenness. They've done loads of surveys on it, but they've discovered that actually makes a huge difference to your physical health, because you take a deep breath when you're exposed to all that beautiful greenness, but also they're good for our mental health as well. So if you're feeling out of sorts, go and have a walk in a forest somewhere, and it just completely changes your mindset and your energy.
So I've made a few notes as to why we might want to work with trees.
Okay, do you want to go for it?
Let's have a look at some of my notes.
Okay, love.
Yeah, I mean, Annie and I both love trees. It's absolutely
them, aren't we?
central to who we are, isn't it, Annie?
Yeah.
Trees play a deep part in our cultural heritage.
Indeed.
And the kinds of trees that we're going to be able to connect with will vary depending where we live in the world. But always try to work with the native species. There are two main kinds of tree spirits that we can work with. The spirit of a particular tree, often known as a dryad.
Yeah.
And the collective spirit of the species, sometimes called the species oversoul.
Yeah, absolutely.
We often work with the collective spirit through systems such as Ogham, spelt Ogham, or the Celtic tree alphabet.
Yeah.
But each letter or rune is associated with a different tree species.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say a little bit about that because it's a fascinating subject. Maybe we can do a whole show on it one day.
Yeah, sure.
But it was, I mean, I've been doing some research and it's been suggested by some people who should know better that the Irish used Ogham, because it really came from Ireland, as a secret language that the Romans wouldn't understand. But the Romans never conquered Ireland, so I don't know what that was all about.
Somebody got their facts a little bit mixed up, didn't they, Jack? Clearly.
But no,
and added up 2 and 2 and made 69 again.
But Ogham was also used in Scotland and parts of Wales.
Yeah.
And the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
So it could well have been true there.
Yeah.
This is deeply rooted in folk traditions of the British Isles. Ogham can be used for spell casting and divination in the same way that runes can be used.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's much more to the tree Ogham than that, of course. Indeed, it can be incredibly useful or helpful to develop a connection with trees.
Yeah.
There are a few different ways that we can connect with trees. I highly recommend beginning by doing some research, some book learning.
Yeah.
Learn to identify the different species where you live.
Yeah.
Before you go out starting to connect with them.
Indeed.
It's told that the Druids of old could identify every native species in every season, even at night.
Yeah.
Sure, they recognized the shapes of the leaves and the pattern of the bark, but I suspect they also were able to communicate directly with a tree and ask it.
Yeah, indeed.
But before we get to that level of proficiency, some book learning must come first. Learn to identify all the native trees that are available in your local geographical region.
Yeah.
Where each of them grows and the kinds of ecosystems they prefer to grow in. Then, when you're out and about, try to spot some of them and record where you saw them. Then you can go back later and make friends.
Yeah.
It's a good idea to research into the folklore and the history of each of these trees. Often trees are deeply ingrained in our folklore and mythology. If we find a particular tree that really interests us, we can do some specific research around that tree, around any local mythology or history that may be associated with it, any local traditions. It's also really good to look into some general mythology around our particular area, and look into how trees were perceived in the past, as this can give us a good indication of how we might want to work with them today. It's really good to understand the historical perspective as well as the mythology.
Yeah.
Then get out there into nature and start connecting. Connecting with trees is incredibly simple, really. People make such heavy weather of it, but it's really not that complicated. Trees are people. And when you realize that trees are people, treat them just like human people.
Yeah.
And that they're all individuals.
Oh, indeed. They're clearly sentient beings. And although there are similarities in species, you know, like all yew trees have a particular energy and have a particular way of being, actually they're all really individual as well.
Oh yeah. When you start working with trees, you get to know them as individuals.
Yeah, indeed.
Some are extremely friendly, while others can be almost hostile. So just like human people, don't stay where you're not welcome.
Indeed.
Go where the love is.
Indeed.
How can you tell? By the way you feel when you're
Absolutely. Absolutely. Once you approach them, you don't even need to be hugging them. As you approach them, you can feel their energy and they feel your heart energy, and they can make, you know, a decision about whether your energy is high vibrational, loving energy, or if it's not. And obviously trees, like most people, would rather spend time with someone who's high vibrational and has a big loving heart.
Absolutely. Trees want to go, I mean, they can't physically go, but they want to go where the love is. They want to be where the love is too.
Yeah, indeed. That's why they welcome us so much, isn't it?
So when you find a friendly tree, try to spend some time with it.
Yeah.
Ideally several times a week, or at least once a week. And it needs to be quality time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't be listening to music or scrolling through our phones.
Oh no, definitely not. I never take my phone when I'm visiting trees, never.
We need to be 100% present with the tree.
Absolutely. No, it's really critical. It's really critical. Like, you wouldn't be with a friend and then be looking at your phone all the time, would you? You just wouldn't do that. You would be fully present and fully engaged with them. And the trees are no different, really.
When you learn to treat trees just like people,
yeah.
Well, I treat trees a lot better than people on the whole. I prefer trees. They respond, they reciprocate.
Yeah, indeed. No, they really do. And you know what we did on Saturday was I respectfully asked if we could have 2 little pieces of Halloween.
You did, yeah.
Before I take it. And sometimes people forget that. They just rip bits off of twigs or branches. That isn't what I think we should do. I think we should ask, just like you wouldn't take something from a person without their permission, would you? So that was the same. And he was very happy for us to have 2 little pieces, you know, from him, because we did ask respectfully and he liked our energy. You know, and I just think it's really important to always ask the plant or the tree if you have their permission to take it.
Always ask and always listen for the answer.
Yeah, indeed. Oh, indeed, darling.
Don't just go with the answer that you want to hear.
Yeah.
pretend you heard it. That would be so rude.
It would. It would. And you know what you've just said? I make my willow essence from a little tree in my back garden called Salix integra. But when I want proper weeping willow to make as an essence, I usually go and ask those trees in St Michael's churchyard. And the first time I went to this first willow tree and said, "Excuse me, would it be okay if I had some of your willow to make in essence?" And he went, "No." And then the one next to him said, "You could have some of me," straight away. So he made this snap decision that no, I couldn't have any of his willow leaves, but the tree next to him, I'm saying a him, I don't know if it's a him or a her really, but the tree next to him said, "Oh yeah, you can have some of me instead." So
yeah, I mean, this is
we
what
just have to honour that for whatever reason, that isn't good for them. That isn't the right time for them, or
yeah. But this goes back to what I was saying about Great Haywood.
yeah.
Most of the trees there were really, really friendly, but there's just this one that's got the hump.
Yeah. And it might be that somebody's done something that the tree wasn't asked permission about. We don't know really, do we, what might have happened to that tree? But yeah, all we need is love.
Love is all we need.
And the trees only need love as well.
Just spend as much time with the tree as possible.
Yeah.
Go back to the same one every time. Yeah. In the beginning, while you're getting used to it. Go back to the same one every time.
Well, you can build a relationship then with the tree, can't you?
Yeah. Go back often. Show that you're really serious about forming a relationship.
Yeah, indeed.
Just as you would with a person.
Indeed.
Try to spend at least 10 minutes, or if you can, up to an hour or even more.
Yeah.
The more time we spend, the quicker the connection will form.
Yeah, indeed.
While you're there, pay attention to the tree itself. What color are the leaves? What is its bark like? What does it feel like?
Yeah, that's a big one for me.
What does it smell like?
Yeah.
What seeds does it have?
Yeah, and berries.
Does it have any flowers? How does it look in that particular season?
Yeah.
Listen to the wind rustling through the leaves.
Yeah.
Take note of the things that are growing around it. Is it home for birds or squirrels?
Yeah.
Does it have mistletoe or ivy growing on it?
Yeah. I want to dispel a myth about ivy choking the tree. They're not, they're symbiotic.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Somebody told me a while ago that, you know, you should strip all that ivy off him if you really love him. And I said, no, I've asked him in the past and he said, it's symbiosis. The ivy's helping me with its sapiens, I think is what he said. And I'm helping the ivy. So actually, that isn't true. It's just what people think is happening without actually communicating with that tree. So they're not choking them, they're not strangling them, not doing anything horrible. It's symbiotic relationship between the ivy and the particular tree. And again, with mistletoe, it's symbiosis, isn't it?
Yeah, they love each other. There's no problem there. There's no angst going on there.
No, absolutely, darling.
So pay attention to all these things, just as you would pay attention if you were with a human friend.
Yeah.
But you pay attention to how the human friend looked and how the human friend was interacting with you that day.
Yeah.
So why would you do anything different for a tree?
Well, we wouldn't, would we? As we're so in love with trees.
We are, yeah. Soon you'll start to notice that you feel differently when you're spending time with your tree.
Absolutely. It's like being with a friend.
Or you also feel differently when you visit on different occasions.
Yeah.
because the trees have moods.
Yeah.
In fact, trees can be extremely emotional.
Yeah.
We can tell whether they're distressed, whether they're happy and comfortable, based on the feelings that we get from them while
Yeah.
we're there.
Indeed.
And this is something which develops over time. Don't expect to do it, understand it the first time.
Yeah.
Expect to get the communication the first time.
Yeah.
Unless you're particularly used to working with energies. It may take weeks, it may take months.
I was very blessed, Jack, because my grandfather, from the time I was about 4, used to sit me on his shoulders and he'd take me to the local massive arboretum. It's called Warden Park.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just say, this is a yew tree, this is holly, this is oak, this is lime, this is whatever. He'd get me to look at the leaves. He'd always get me to ask respectfully if I wanted a leaf. And I think just constantly being told what the names of the trees are and what historically they might have been used for really helped to embed that information in me as a little 4-year-old.
Yeah.
So I used to be able to recite it and go, okay, so you's good for this, and this is good for this, and this is good for this. And it was that my grandfather made sure that I spent time, and he would identify the trees, he would talk to them. So I do think it's, as you say, it's really important to get to know them.
Yeah, really try and get to know your tree.
Yeah.
To know whether it feels more distressed on days when it's really, really windy, or when there are lots of people around.
Yeah.
Is it happier on sunny days?
Yeah.
Or after the rain?
Yeah.
Is it happy while you're there?
That's the most important thing, isn't it?
Or are you making it uncomfortable?
Yeah, that's never happened to me, so I must be very blessed, Jack.
Yeah. These are the things that we slowly start to notice the more we work with trees.
Indeed.
Sometimes we notice when something changes because we get a shiver down the spine, or we feel our hair standing on end.
Yeah.
Or we might feel
those goosebumps on your goosebumps.
Yeah, goosebumps. Yeah, or we might have this really content, cozy feeling.
Yeah, indeed.
All of these sensations are worth paying attention to because they tell you how the tree is feeling.
Yeah.
It's a good idea to keep a diary, keep some kind of record.
Yeah.
Of your feelings and the things that you're noticing, the seasonal changes and the different things that you're noticing. On occasion, we might be moved to leave an offering.
Yeah. I've left crystals, I've left feathers, I've left bracelets when I was in Bali and Thailand. I just undid my bracelets and my necklaces and hung them on the tree. So again, it's just honouring the tree. It's bringing a present to the tree for the lovely energy that they're giving to you.
And it's a way of giving thanks as well.
It is. It so is, darling.
And building a relationship.
Indeed. And all that you've seen, all the trees in my garden, they've all got ribbons and earrings on and little crystals and all sorts of things, because I want to say thank you to all the trees for the pleasure that they give me.
People often tie ribbons known as cluties to the branches. This is often done as part of a healing ritual.
Yeah.
Or just to say thank you.
Yeah. That's my motivation, to say thank you to them.
If you're going to do this, please make sure that your clutie is made of natural materials and not plastic.
Oh, God, no.
Way too much plastic in the environment as it is.
Yeah.
It never rots down and can damage the tree as the tree grows. Or we can just give our energy, as Annie said.
Yeah, and give our love.
Just give your love as an offering.
Yeah.
We can sprinkle some water around the tree. moon water is good, or water that you've charged with energy.
Yeah.
Just hold a glass in your hand and charge it with energy from your hands.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or we can sing to the tree.
Yay! I sing to Elwyn all the time, made up songs.
Yeah, it's a lovely way to communicate with the tree.
It is, it really is, and he really appreciates it. Yeah, without a doubt, darling. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we can also clean up litter from around the tree if we
Oh
find.
yeah, definitely. I'm a mer fairy, so it's absolutely essential that we do that.
And generally just try to nurture the tree as much as we can.
Yeah.
So now we've made friends, we can start asking questions.
Yeah.
The first questions to ask, or asking for permission, as Annie just said, if you want to take a leaf or a branch or a piece of bark. A lot of books talk about this, about asking permission.
Yeah.
But they don't explain how.
Yeah.
People will often get confused by the idea, because how do you get an answer from a tree? And if you're new to
listen
this,
with your
that's a legitimate question.
Yeah. So I believe that plants and trees communicate with us telepathically as well as physically. And one of the things I like to do is ask the name of the tree.
Yeah. And you actually heard the name of your
Elwyn, yeah.
And the
my
kids,
little boys.
and the kids
And they
heard it too.
Well. Although I was saying it out loud because my children were about 6 and 5 at the time. And I just said to him, I really love coming to visit you. What's your name? And I used to hear it, telepathically. But on this occasion, he went, Elwyn, in this really deep voice that my children heard as well, which was awesome and lovely. But sometimes trees are more subtle than that. Sometimes how they're communicating with us is far more subtle, and it is telepathically that they're communicating with us.
I mean, it may take several months to establish a relationship before you start to actually hear the answers.
Maybe.
Certainly if you're new to it.
Yeah, I guess.
And always try to make sure that you're getting a valid answer and you're not just creating an answer out of your own head.
Yeah, what you want.
That's so easy to do.
I like that willow tree going, no, you can't have any of me. And then the one next to it going, yeah, you can have some of me.
Yeah, sometimes you actually hear the words, as Annie said, but mostly it's a feeling.
Yeah, particularly if you're clairsentient, you're going to feel the answer, aren't you?
We can feel whether it's a positive or a negative response.
Yeah, indeed.
Based on the feelings that we get when we ask.
Yeah.
It may take months to get to that stage. Connecting with trees isn't a quick process. It takes a long time. Weeks, months, sometimes.
Well, I think it can be much quicker than that.
It can be. It depends how. I mean, if you're
open you are to it. Yeah.
If you're a natural like Annie, or if you spend a lot of time each week with a tree, the process can be a lot quicker.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trees have seen a lot of life and death. They live for a long time.
Yeah.
And they know a lot of things.
Yeah.
That we could never dream of.
Yeah.
So we can gain a lot of wisdom and insight from working with trees. We can start asking, well, ask whether the tree is comfortable for you to take a leaf or a piece of bark. But then you can start asking other sorts of questions. probably best to start with simple yes/no questions, because you can feel whether you feel positive inside or negative inside after asking it.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you get an answer, give thanks to the tree.
Yeah.
Leave an offering of some sort, as we've said, or just an offering of love.
Yeah.
If you want to gain knowledge from a tree, it's all about asking questions.
Yeah.
While you're sitting with it. Spend time with it. Form a bond with it.
Yeah, indeed.
You can't rush these things. It probably won't be a large question and answer session. It'll probably just be one question.
Yeah.
Certainly to start with. But if you keep a record, you can start to build up a conversation over time.
Yeah.
Start to build up a picture over time if you keep a record.
Yeah, and that kind of links in with Andrew would be deeply shocked at the show and tell this week as well, which I'll get onto shortly. But when I've asked the particular tree if I can have a witness, and then they've thrown, you know, a twig, a branch, whatever, then I'll make sure I label it up straight away, because it's so easy if you've been for a walk in a forest to have been given lots of witnesses and you may not remember which tree it came from. Yeah. So I've usually got sticky labels with me in a pen, so I can just wrap that round so I know for sure what it is.
Oh yeah, that's very good. Yeah. Some trees can be a little bit shy.
Yeah.
But some will talk quickly.
Yeah.
I want to share information with us.
Yeah, of course.
But others might be a bit closed off.
Yeah.
Certainly if they've had bad experiences with people.
Yeah.
With human people.
Not the little people.
There are different tree species have their own characteristics too.
Yeah, indeed.
Some are more talkative than others.
Yeah.
It's said that willows tend to be very mellow and they're not really interested in conversation, but they're happy to have our company.
Yeah.
Whereas birches tend to be chatterboxes.
Yeah.
Have you found that any?
Yew trees seem to chatter the most to me, but it's probably because I spend so much time with yew tree. But yeah, certainly silver birch especially is very chattery.
Yeah, you've got a special connection with trees anyway.
Yeah, and Birches Valley is just replete with loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of lovely not yew trees, silver birch as well. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. Once we formed a connection with a specific tree, we can then go on to try to form a connection with the species oversoul if we want to.
Yeah.
But don't neglect the original tree.
Yeah.
Don't neglect your relationship.
Yeah, of course.
You wouldn't do that with a friend, would you?
No.
That's using people.
Yeah, so however you would treat a good friend, that's how you, and a really precious friend, that's how we should be treating the trees as well, I think.
Yeah, whether it's a human friend or a tree friend.
Yeah, indeed.
Treat them the same.
Yeah, indeed.
Don't use them. But when you start to work generally with a species, you can start to feel how the species feels as opposed to a different species.
Yeah, yeah.
How they have different energies. It's very much a feeling thing. This isn't an intellectual pursuit. It's not a head thing.
No. It's a heart thing.
It's a heart thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's based on feelings.
Indeed.
Right, that's the end of my notes.
Okay. So I've already confessed that I have a love affair with, particularly with all trees, but my favourite species is definitely yews, but I love oak trees and hawthorn as well. So, as well as birches, as we've talked about. So St Melengiel's Church in Pennant Melengiel, that we briefly talked about previously, is a small church located on a minor road which joins the B4391 near the village of Llanganog. That was probably a rubbish pronunciation for anybody who's Welsh. They're probably going, oh my God, what is she saying? So it's Llangynog. It's Powys in Wales. It houses the restored shrine of St Melengel, reputed to be the oldest Romanesque shrine in Great Britain. So the address is Pennant Melengel, Oswestry, and the founder was St Melengel, and it was founded in the 8th century. So it's a really beautiful love story. So it said that Melengel was going for a walk, and a huntsman and all his pack of dogs and horses were going to kill this hare. So she hid the hare behind her, and he said, I'm going to kill the hare. And she went, you'll have to get through me first, basically. And because she was a feisty, caring, beautiful goddess, he fell in love with her. And she said that she wanted to build a convent on this land that was there. So he actually did that for us. So I think that's a really sweet little story.
Oh, that's gorgeous, yeah.
Isn't it?
I think we mentioned it before in a previous show.
Yeah, we did, darling, absolutely. So the ancient yew tree with the split trunk to the west of St Melengel's tree. There are several trees right round this little tiny weeny church that are said to be at least 2,000 years old. And Andrew will be so pleased. This is a piece of one of them. So I said to the tree, could I have a witness, please? And then he threw this great big branch. I meant, you know, like what we asked for on Saturday, Jack. I was expecting that.
You're expecting that.
And suddenly this thud. And he did used to have 3 fingers, but he's only got 2 fingers on him now, sadly. But this is from the 2,000-year-old yew trees in Pennant Melengel, basically. And I love it. It just is so tactile and so scrummy and lovely.
At least it didn't hit you on the head.
I know it could have been a lot worse, couldn't it, really? But that just, I should say that I only want a little bit, perhaps, not a massive amount, basically. So it is a Norman church. Signs of prehistoric activity date back to the Bronze Age, 12,000 AD, have been found under and around the church. According to her legend, Melengel was a 7th century Irish princess, that was meant to be, who came to the Tanat Valley seeking religious solitude. She magically protected a hunted hare from Brockwell, the Prince of Powys, who granted her land to found a nunnery.
That's a beautiful story.
So the next one I want to talk about is Muchmarcle. So this is another example of me not being able to know what size things are. Story of my life. So I'll show you this beauty. This is him. So this beautiful one here is a yew tree, and it was hit by lightning. Can you see that, Jack?
Yeah.
And there's a little seat inside it. So this one is at Muchmarcle, which is in Herefordshire. And in July 1953, the tree was measured by the Reverend Graham Holly, who was the rector there from 1967 to 1994, and Sir Ernley Kirley Pope. The girth of the tree measured 30 foot 1 inch and was measured 4 foot 6 from the ground. The tree was remeasured in April 2006, and it was 30 foot 11 inches and 4 foot 6 from the ground. It had just been pruned for the first time in many years. It is estimated that workers have probably removed about 6 tons of dead timbers and unnecessary branches which were lay on the ground. It took 45 man hours and more than 8 trailer loads of rubbish to do this work. We think that the tree would appreciate that what has been done to lighten its load. The parochial church council have a certificate stating that the tree is 1,500 years old. And people who doubt state that they can confirm the age of the tree is 1,508 years old, which means the tree was planted in at least the year 5,500.
500, yeah. What's that beautiful book you're referring to?
Oh yes, Meeting with Remarkable Trees by Thomas Pakenham.
That's the big version of the smaller book you lent me.
Can't do sizes. I don't know what centimeters and millimeters are, so I'm very grateful because this is much. It's got gigantic pictures of the trees I want to show you, so I'm very grateful that I misordered it, or maybe it was just a blessing.
I'll put a link to the book down below.
Okay, good. The Muchmarker Yew is certainly an impressive specimen. It is reckoned to be at least 1,000 years old. The interior has been fitted with a bench offering enough seating space, the church believes, for up to a dozen parishioners. I think it would be very snug if there was a dozen parishioners inside there. The lovely Gareth, who I know as Ziggy, we visited this beautiful yew tree at Muchmarker, and it is the most wonderful energy to be inside there and to be feeling that. It really is extraordinarily beautiful, and it's got loads of struts holding up its lower branches so that they don't break, basically. But it's called a gargantuan yew tree. Thomas Pakenham describes how the tree was thought of by Christians as akin to the head of Janus in Roman mythology. And then the next one I thought I'd show you is Shropshire's Pitchford Hall treehouse. I love tree houses. I have stayed in quite a few, but this one is quite extraordinary, although sadly this is tea in a tree at Pitchford, darling. Can you see that?
Oh wow, that's a tree house and a half, isn't it?
Isn't it? And then the other picture, that's what it's like inside it. It's beautiful. Now, I visited it some years ago, but they're not taking visitors anymore, which is really sad. It's really sad. So Shropshire's Pitchford Hall treehouse.
Play that again.
Shropshire's Pitchford Hall treehouse.
Easy for you to say, Annie.
This lime tree is thought to be between 800 and 900 years old. The Pitchford treehouse is certainly one of the oldest, if not the oldest, tree houses in the world. It was built by Shrewsbury wool merchants, the Otterley family, who bought Pitchford Hall in 1473. It is not known exactly when the tree house was constructed, but according to John Yates from English Heritage, it is at least 300 years old. Its most famous visitor is said to have been Queen Victoria, who visited Pitchford as a 13-year-old princess. According to John Yates from English Heritage, the future monarch described Pitchford Hall itself as a very, very big cottage. Today, the building is considered to be one of the finest timber-framed buildings in the country. The Pitchford tree house is a sleeping beauty of Shropshire, and one day it'll wake up again from the outside. The tree house looks like a miniature replica of Pitchford Hall, but John Yates said it has not always been like that. It started out with render all over it, to preserve the stone. So it would have looked even stranger than it does now. So it would have had loads of that on it.
Mm.
The tree house has been renovated at various times throughout its history, but in July 2010, English Heritage placed the building on its at-risk register. Because this was partially because of the age of the tree, but also the steps going up to the tree house they felt might be dangerous for some people. So the tree house, Michael Ashmore has now rebuilt the steps, but you have to ask the owner, Michael Ashmore, if you can go and visit it, which it wasn't as formal as that. You just went to the hall and asked him, could you go up in the tree house, and he'd let you. But once, I guess, English Heritage got involved, they're going to do all the health and safety stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Even so, the steps are now back, and it might turn out that Michael Ashmore might start letting visitors in again. We'll see. Mm. But he had the lime carbon dated by an expert from Kew Gardens, who thought it could be up to 900 years old, which I would say that's about right. Lime trees only normally live for about 400 years. So the tree house is now almost entirely supported by metal struts. And Mr. Ashmore has secured the tree branches with wires to prevent as much damage as possible. So it's really good to, you know, that he built this tree house, and it's really beautiful, but he's looking after the tree in you know, whatever lifespan it's got. And then the next one I thought I'd show you, I've visited as well, the yew at Muckross Abbey in Ireland. Which page is it? This is it. It's called Among the Angels at Muckross Abbey in this delightful book. So I'll show you this. It's absolutely huge.
That is massive.
Isn't it?
That is massive.
It's beautiful. It's truly beautiful.
What sort of tree is it?
It's a yew tree again.
A yew tree, yeah.
My only sadness is when I visited it, at the end of the picture, can you see there's a railing round it?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how sad I was about that, but that didn't stop me from climbing over and hugging the tree. I always think that these obstacles are put in place just to see how creative I am at getting around it. So the tree was saying he wanted a hug. I wanted to give him a hug. So I just climbed over the railing. And as nobody came and told me off, I guess that was exactly what was meant to happen. So the yew at Muckross Abbey is based in Killarney. Muckross Abbey is one of the major ecclesiastical sites found in the Killarney National Park, County Kerry, Ireland. It was founded in 1448 as a Franciscan friary for the Observantine Franciscans by Donald McCarthy Moore. It has had a violent history and has been damaged and reconstructed many times. It is strange that there are no really ancient yew trees in Ireland. There are a handful that are reckoned to be 700 to 800 years old, but that's not really ancient for a tree with a life expectancy in millennia rather than centuries. But the age of most yew trees tends to be based on educated guesses, sometimes more than scientific data. When they're ancient, they are invariably hollow, which makes it almost impossible to extract core samples from them and count the annual rings. But to my knowledge, very few cores have been taken from living Irish trees. Take the yew tree that grows in the cloisters of Muckross Abbey near Killarney. It's always assumed that the tree was planted by the Franciscans, giving it an age of over 550 years. However, it's much more likely that the abbey was built around the tree, as it was already mature and very well established, making this tree a lot older. And I would say, just from my experience of spending time with particularly yew trees, that's right, that they didn't plant it when the church was there, that yew was already established on that ancient Celtic burial ground, and then they built the church. So I do think it's a lot older than it's said to be. There is plenty of evidence that in earlier times, ecclesiastical sites were chosen on the basis that an old yew tree was already growing there, which is much more like my viewpoint.
Yeah, it makes much more sense, doesn't it?
Doesn't it, darling? Some of these churches are up to 1,200 years old and the trees are still alive. Choosing to build an abbey around a yew tree is one of the many examples of the Christianization of a much older pagan Celtic belief, which is what you were talking about at the beginning of the program, darling, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
There is quite a bit of evidence in folklore and mythology indicating that yews were always venerated, and so they should be.
Absolutely, yeah.
They are our largest native evergreen, and when they grow in mixed woodland, the shade that they cast and the toxins that they secrete from their berries, but also the pollen from their flowers as well, makes so the toxins they secrete in their root systems create an open clearing, the ideal place for a ceremony. But also to give other species a chance, I guess, as well. Our ancestors also seem to be impressed by the fact that they remained green and vibrant when all the other large trees had succumbed to winter. They became associated with victory over death, but we also have hard evidence from bogwood and studies of fossil pollen that they were once more widespread than they are today. And the probable reason for their decline is that they were persecuted. Yew foliage is quite poisonous to livestock.
Yes, it is, yeah.
The berries, we've been told for a long time, or I was told for a long time, are poisonous. They're not. The pip of the berry is poisonous. So you can eat the very sweet yew berries, providing you spit out the pip. And otherwise you go on a completely different journey to the astral plane, fast tracking. So I do know that in the past I've eaten them and I've spit out the pip basically afterwards.
Okay, yeah.
Prove that they're not, it isn't the whole berry that's poisonous. And an interesting fact about yew tree is that tamoxifen, the cancer killing drug, is made from yew trees.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Yeah, we have, haven't we?
Yeah. One of the reasons that yew trees are so scarce is because they've been removed from farmland.
Yeah.
Because they're toxic to livestock.
Yeah, or said to be. Something that's really lovely about yew trees is they are a symbol of rebirth and reincarnation.
Yeah.
So the adult tree will not allow itself to die until it's planted a new yew tree inside it, and then it feeds the little yew tree with its own body, and it will only die when he knows that the baby yew tree can sustain itself. Ancient trees are irreplaceable. Steeped in history, these impressive trees have been standing tall for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years, witnessing momentous historical events while providing invaluable homes for wildlife. The older the tree, the more vital to wildlife it becomes.
Oh, yeah.
Gnarly, bent, ridged, hollow, ancient trees are a spectacular sight and the perfect example of living archaeology. They have passed maturity, are very old in comparison to other trees of the same species, and are actually in the third or final stage of their life. A small canopy, the canopy of the tree, will have reduced in size over time through a process known as retrenchment or growing downwards. This is a natural process in which the crown of the tree and the root system are rebalanced with each other.
Even dead trees are very, very important for wildlife.
Oh, massively.
As they rot down, they make nesting holes for birds and food for
Hedgehogs love them.
millions of different insects.
Yeah, absolutely, darling.
And it's such a shame that as soon as one starts, it's this health and safety nonsense again, isn't it? As soon as one starts to shed a few branches, you know, that's it. Cut it down, take it away.
Yeah.
It's a huge loss to the wildlife in the area.
Oh, massively, darling. It really is. So a wide trunk, the trunk will be wide in comparison with other trees when it's an ancient tree of the same species. Its size can be greatly affected by factors such as species, soil, climate, and growing conditions. The girth could be 1.5 meters at least for trees such as hawthorn, or 5 meters for trees like sweet chestnut. With a smaller crown and a wide trunk, the tree is improving its chances of withstanding high winds. Hollowing, most ancient trees usually have a hollow trunk, although this isn't always the case. It can be difficult to identify hollowing unless there is a cavity to look into. Other common characteristics of ancient trees include coarse or crevice bark and aerial roots growing into the decaying trunks and cavities. So one of the other love affairs that I have is with oak trees.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely love oak trees. They're very good for helping us manifest our dreams into reality. This one, lovely Jack, you will especially appreciate because there's a 500-year-old oak tree in Glastonbury. And much like I did with the yew tree, I asked for a witness, but I didn't say what size, which was my mistake.
Ah.
So I said, can I have a witness? And it went thud, and this big piece of bark just came off.
Brilliant, yeah.
And then because it has got, again, a fence round it, which is doing the tree no good at all. They're saying it's to preserve the tree. No, it's not. It's just hurting its roots. But I then climbed over the fence, and I was just retrieving this when a policeman came and told me off and said, you haven't had permission. I said, actually, I have had permission. I asked the tree, and the tree gave me this. And he went, on your way. So I was
where in Glastonbury, Annie?
So, going up as if you were going up to the Chalice-Well Gardens, and it's got a big railing all the way around it. So I can't be more specific than that, Jack, because as you know, I have a very unusual sense of direction.
I know what you mean anyway, yeah.
You do know what I mean. This beauty came from the ancient oak forest at Rockturn that I've talked about before. This is a piece of hawthorn. Can you see what I've done? I've just used a felt tip to write hawthorn on it, just in case I forgot, because I picked up a lot of witnesses. But again, I just asked the hawthorn tree. And again, I meant a little bit like the bit that we had on Saturday, but the hawthorn tree had another idea. So it threw this at me. So I said, thank you very much. And I used that in my tree spirit healing. It's important to note that the third stage of the tree's life isn't necessarily the end of the line. Although they're in the final stage of their life and are usually in the process of decay, these trees can live on for many, many more years. So I've already told you about the rebirth and reincarnation that the yew trees exemplify.
Yeah.
And then I thought I'd talk about the Lost Gardens of Helligan. Have you ever been to the Lost Gardens of Helligan?
No, I couldn't find them.
Oh, Jack! Oh, my goodness!
It's a joke. They're lost. I couldn't find them.
Oh, fuck. Sorry. I mean, oh, golly. That was a joke, Jack. You'll have to edit that bit out.
It's what passes for a joke this time of night. It's been a slightly trying day today. I'll just leave it at that. The Lost Gardens of Helligan. 30 years ago, Helligan's historic gardens
were unknown and unseen, lost to the brambles of time since the outbreak of World War One. It was only the chance discovery of a door in the ruins that led to the restoration of this once beautiful estate. Today, the lost gardens have been put back where they belong, in pride of place among the finest gardens in England. The Lost Gardens of Heligan are located near Mevagissey in Cornwall, England, and are considered to be amongst the most popular in the UK. The gardens are typical of the 19th century gardenesque style, with areas of different character and in different design styles. And it's at Pentywyn, St Austell. You can explore the Victorian productive gardens and pleasure grounds along winding paths that were laid out over 2 centuries ago. You can journey across the forgotten world between the historic rhododendron boughs of Sikkim, beside miry carved tree ferns in New Zealand, to explore the Italian gardens and alpine-inspired ravine. In the jungle experience, there are intimate pathways edged with subtropical paintings that have been created through the valley and its watercourses. This exuberant, beautiful garden hosts a riot of luxuriant foliage, bamboo tunnels, gigantic rhubarb and bananas, drawing the imagination on a journey from our temperate scores. But the bits I love the best are, there is a giant's head, there's a mud maiden that I've still got a picture of, and a grey lady are all waiting to be discovered along the woodland walk to delightful bird song. This sheltered path comes to life for children and adults alike as the woodland sculptures reveal themselves. Ancient woodlands and grazed pastures are managed to promote wildlife, whether you're accompanied on your visit by your own personal robin or you're lucky enough to glimpse a kingfisher or a hummingbird. It's one of the few places I saw a hummingbird. Heligan is so much more than just a garden that's been restored. Its own special atmosphere encourages contemplation, inspiration, satisfying the broadest range of horticultural and wildlife interests. Today, the 200 acres of mysterious gardens and estate offer quite simply the best natural playground ever. And the last time I went there, I went in as soon as it opened at 9:30, and they kicked me out at 5 o'clock. And I don't know what happened to the time in between. I was literally away with the fairies. It was replete with fairy and elemental and tree spirits. And I just had the most wonderful, amazing time there. So you'll have to go to the Lost Gardens of Heligan that aren't lost anymore.
Sounds wonderful. Sounds wonderful. Next time I'm in Kerno,
yeah, go for it.
I'll give it a look.
So that's what I've got for tonight. But I thoroughly recommend meeting with Remarkable Trees, even if it's a smaller version.
I shall put a link down below to the coffee table size book and also to the normal size book.
Okay, and this is the Lost Gardens of Heligan, the ferns, which I love the ferns.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Yeah. You
see that? So obviously I was meant to do my show hotel with a giant meeting with Remarkable Trees book.
Will you lend me the small one?
Yes. I thought you might enjoy it.
I am enjoying
it. Travels that, you know, and also just looking at pictures of trees really does the trick for me.
Well, thank you, Annie. That was a really, really good one tonight.
Thank you, and thank you for your input as well, darling.
You haven't said much tonight, Andrew. Are you muted?
Unmute yourself, lad. Doesn't help
you
talking.
Got any favourite trees, Andrew?
I was just remembering when I was little that my granddad used to go around showing me all the trees, and I really didn't take as much notice as you did, Annie, but it just brought it all back to me that it was just a very special time. Just walking through the park, and he knew all his trees, he knew them from their leaves, and I'm sad really that certainly me, I can't speak for the whole planet, but that we've lost this connection. And this at first, when I was listening to what you were saying, I was just thinking, really, trees? And by the end of it, I'm going, wow, trees. So as usual, both yourself, Jack.
Sorry?
Annie, just at the end there, it just, I have got a yourself, Jack, with what you have to say, but with Annie, it's just the delivery. It's so exciting, the way she sings to us about all these things. And it's just a really beautiful, magical world that you live in. And I'd rather have you explain things to me and Jack than anybody else. I just think it warms my heart that this information sadly isn't out there. I think it was part of, certainly from remembering what my experience of going through the park with Grandad, it was the kind of thing that we all did in the village community, rather than the brick-built city, the asphalt jungle. This was quite a normal part of growing up, that you had somebody in your life that would go and explain things to you like this, the wonder of it all, the wonder of nature, and the wonder of, and it also reminded me of Prince Caspian, is it? And
you're breaking up a little bit, Andrew.
In the tales of C.S. Lewis, connection is unstable. C.S. Lewis talks about the dryads and the trees, and that came back to me as well. So that there's stuff in there, but I wonder how many people who are younger than me have any of that in their experience, knowing how many people. I certainly haven't had those kind of conversations with my grandchildren.
Where do you think Tolkien got the idea?
It's a bit sad that. So it's like the discovery is amazing, but then when you realize what's been lost, it is sad. And I think that what you're doing here with this show is acclimatizing us all that are willing to watch and to pay attention to what's being said here Monday by Monday. We have the opportunity to make that connection again, but not just to do it on a factual, which is a factual basis, but it's also with so much joy. It's presented with so much fun and so much love in your heart for the subject. And that's what connects it. If you were just saying, I was thinking about last week, and I was just reading some notes, and admittedly it was thrown on me at the last moment, but it just felt so much different this week. It was lovely.
Thank you, Andrew.
We're glad you're back, Annie.
Hey?
We're glad you're back. We missed you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we did. We missed you very much, and especially
I'm glad to be back.
when I said to the audience, next week you'll have a much more beautiful and pretty person to talk to.
Thank you.
I must give a huge thanks to Andrew for standing in last week.
Oh, he did. Lastminute.com, wasn't it?
You did a brilliant job, Andrew.
Yeah, you did, Andrew. I listened to it.
Yeah, all I did was I just went and found something online and read it. But I did notice tonight the way that Annie's forever, I would have said butting in if it had been me, interrupting, but not interrupting in a negative way, just giving encouragement to Jack as he's presenting things. Yeah, that's right, that's right. And I wasn't doing that. And I felt that I'd taken something from this wonderful hour and a half on a Monday by not doing that. So my apologies, Jack, for
no, you don't have to apologize.
Honestly,
Don't
apologise.
I just sat there poor-faced all the way through everything.
You've got nothing to apologise for.
No, it was, I landed it on Jack, verylastminute.com. I wasn't expected to have this stuff out. And you know, the fact that you did step in, otherwise Jack would have cancelled it, wouldn't he? So no, you did a really good job. Both of you guys did.
I'd have done it on my own, but it's,
yeah,
it's so much
no,
nicer.
when I listened to it, I was just really pleased.
So much nicer having Andrew.
It went okay, but you know, I am now sort of tonight looking at what's happening in a different way, because I was it last week, and now I'm okay. So that's how the nuances of why this show works the way it does, rather than the way it worked when, and it did work when I was in it.
Darling. Sure did. It sure did.
It sure did. Right.
And I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Kind words.
Next week is going to be our last show before the holidays.
Yep, we're going to do the winter solstice.
Of course,
winter solstice special, looking at the story around the winter solstice and the story
will already be in Glastonbury, and I'm very envious.
Looking at the common origins of both, and asking some interesting questions.
Woo!
So come along with an open mind next week. And
bring a friend.
Yes, bring a friend. Yes, bring a friend.
Bring all your friends.
All three of them, yeah.
Yeah. We'll put an extra chair, bring all your friends. I didn't mean that.
and I kept having this song going through my head tonight. I'll never find another you.
I love it.
Where do I find a you? I need a you now.
I think you should sing it. I think you should sing it for us now.
Yeah, I need to find one locally. I need to go and make friends.
You do. You'll love it. You'll love it.
So when I hear that song, I always think of sheep. I don't know why.
Yeah, EWE. Maybe that was the Welsh version you're thinking of.
Right, let's see if we can offend anybody else before we close.
Well,
Please
thank
like
you,
and share and
Andrew.
Subscribe, because that's the way
And thank you to all the
more
people who will listen to it on YouTube. Thank you to the lovely Jack Cox.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please do like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done already, because that helps us reach more people.
Yeah.
Thank you, Annie, for coming this week.
My pleasure.
And being a wonderful co-host.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for your input and your presence and your fun. There's so much fun in this show. It's incredible.
It is.
Right.
Namaste.
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 Bye for now. Bye.